Hi there everybody, welcome back to Prestige Auctions. It's aftermath time once again for yesterday's auction, which was on the 7th of June. And it was an interesting sale, to be fair. It was one of those very mixed sales. We'd had a load of items withdrawn. The numbers seemed jumbled up. People were struggling in the room. It was all very tricky for us, I think, this week. But we got through it in the end, and the room was quite busy. Commission bids were down a little bit than what they normally are, but the room was quite busy, and people were in there, looking for bargains, as they always do in the auction. So what did we sell? Well, we started off at lot number 1, which was this, and of course the resident boat buyer's hand was straight in the air for this one, the old trawler there. And also with the pond yacht as well. He seemed to be back buying boats again. So then we started selling lots and lots of different things. And it was a very, pardon me, a very mixed lot, I thought. The boxes and things weren't selling that well. They weren't selling for loads of money. People were sort of picking and choosing a lot more this week what they wanted to purchase. So rather than just sticking their hands up with anything, they was actually having a good look through the boxes this week. You noticed it in viewing. So one of the things we did have this week was a lot of brass items in the room. Now, on occasions recently, they've done quite well, but they didn't yesterday. And this is the one thing with the auction that, you can never account for, is one thing that can do really well one week and not so well the next week. We want every item to do well. Of course we do. We work on commission, but don't always work out like that. Although there was a lot of hands for this one, and this one sold at around £72, I think, pretty much for the dome, because the domes are harder to get hold of these days than what they were years ago. As we came down here, we sold all of the toys and things, the Funko Pops, the lamps, the Tilly lamps and things. They was all selling okay. I'm trying to pick out any bargains. I thought these were quite cheap. They were quite bargains. So, the Rolling Stones magazines there, and the old daily paper, some of those come at sort of £10 and £20 each online. And if you're buying them in the stack and you're paying 10, 20 quid a stack, they're cheap money, because you just got to let them sit there for a while. There was money for these sort of things, sort of boxed die-cast items. And as we came this way, we all thought that picture was quite funny. It looked like the doll was sat and using that as a toilet or something. But those bits all sold. As we come round to the walls, one or two people in the room trying to buy the trains and things. Of course, they were just models. They weren't like model railway stuff. This one here, the globe, that sold okay. Again, I thought, maybe a few years ago that would have made a bit more, but people are just not looking for the old stuff like they used to. As we come down here, we sold all the promotional t-shirts and things, and then we got onto the boxes of DVDs and CDs. Handbags weren't selling well. Records, there was bidders in the room for the records yesterday. I think pretty much all of the records sold, although they weren't selling at fortunes. There's no doubt about that. They were cheap. Those wall hanging things, I pointed those out on a sneak peek. They was making sort of, was it a tenner a box, something like that? Maybe not as much as that, I'm not sure now, but if you were selling them individual, again, they was cheap stuff. So as we came down here, we got through some bits and bobs of clothing, and then we got through the models. Boxes of assorted, once again, no great shakes. There was bargains to be had yesterday. No doubt about it, there were bargains out there, and people were picking them up. Although that made some money. The Gollies there, I think they made £82, I believe, something like that. Even though there's quite a few of them. Thing with those, let me just go back to those. It's one of the things you need to look out for is this there. See there, just there, the stickers that are on the bottom. People that collect them like to see them original stickers on the bottom. They're not always there because they often got picked off or rubbed off or whatever. There was money in the room for the Hugo Boss stuff there, aftershave or whatever it was. And then the shells, they all sold. There was money for these cosmetics as well. But I think in that box there was a full bottle of Beautiful perfume, and the name Beautiful, that is. As we came onto the main cabinet, jewellery and things, not loads of it this week. There was a few silver coins, there's a few mixed bags of coins, sort of people's old holiday money and what have you. One or two silver charm bracelets, but again, there was nothing was super expensive yesterday. Although there was a few bidders in the room for this stuff. Lego's always popular, so do look out for that if you can buy that up cheap anywhere. And as we came down here, we got onto the collectibles and some magazines and things. There was also one or two boxes of CDs and one or two boxes of assorted collectibles and things, which were all making sort of 10, 8, 10, 12, 15 pounds, something around there. But again, if you're buying all them for that sort of money, you're doing okay because you can split them down and sell them individually. And that's the thing. We had a salt lamp in a box yesterday, something that I noticed, that when we get them salt lamps out, they do between 8 and 15 pound each. We had one in a box yesterday full of other stuff, struggled to sell. In fact, I don't even know if it did sell, for £4. It doesn't make sense. You know, you was getting a lot more for your money, but the DVDs, the DVD sets, we had another collection of those in this week, and obviously somebody said the other week how well the other ones did, and they were doing fair money, but again, it's because it's older TV shows, not all of which you can get on demand these days probably, but people were sort of bidding for those, so they did okay. We then came on to the books. Now the book sets, we had a load of these in the other week, did okay. This week, struggled. It's just one of those things, you know. Is it people are being a little bit more cautious with the money? Are they just buying a little bit better? I don't know. We came on to the miners then. This is an Ethereum miner bank, this one. So if you're into Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and stuff, this is one of the units. Now these take up a hell of a lot of electricity from what I've been told, but there's a lot of stuff in these. I think that bank there sold for about £190. We then got onto those for Ethereum. Apparently these ones are for Bitcoin, and they didn't make quite as much, to be fair, but they are quite old units now. I don't know if methods have changed. I couldn't really tell you much about it. 1 or 2 sets of disco lights, they was all selling. And it's the old the dusty problem. You see dust on things, they tend to make less money because people think they don't work. Well, it's not always the case, you know. So we had these nice clocks, fishing reels. There was decent money for those. Now I don't know a good fishing reel from a bad fishing reel, but you know they were selling. They sold okay. As we come down here, the bags of brass, they all struggled. And then we come on to the Hoovers. Always money for the Henry Hoovers and things, and the Hetty Hoovers. They seem to be quite popular. And then, of course, there was this one, Ding Dong, the bell. 3 telephone lines for that one. It made £600 for the bell. But you can't buy that sort of oxidisation. It's only something that happens naturally over time. But £600 plus commission for that one, that certainly made a few quid. So if you do see any big bells kicking around that are cheap, then get them bought, because they're going to make some money in the auction. As we come down here, we got onto the front table and Lisa took over at this point, and I went for some lunch, so I really don't know what this stuff did. I did catch her selling 1 or 2 of the bits of bobs of CDs, and they seem to be back up to speed. The Calf Kidston bags, well, again, they're hit and miss. They're never ever going to guarantee to make money. She came through this one, sold all the centre of the room. Again, I don't know what that did, and she went through all of the back room as well, and I did catch 1 or 2 bits, you know, that were selling, but the boxes of CDs, boxes and books, I think she was struggling on a few boxes of toys as well this week. So then I went up onto the roster and watched her sell the bags of teddies, which there was bids for again. They seem to be selling every single week. Into the back room this week, the Spud Rumbler, the chili lamp, the galvanised watering cans, the cars and stuff like that, the big can of Swarfiga, they was all selling at reasonably cheap money. I'd say it was a bit of a bargain hunter's day yesterday. The thing is, when people are putting stuff into the auction, you know, it's because they've usually tried every other angle to get rid of it, and a lot of the stuff gets jobbed up. That's what you find with a lot of the privates when they're put into auction, that, you know, they have already tried other ways to sell it, so they're just keen to get rid of it in the end. And of course, one man's junk is another man's treasure. That's always the way. All the golf clubs sold, golf balls and things sold. There was money for the toolboxes, as always. They got missed, so they should be in next week's auction. Because we had all them items withdrawn, it made things a little bit tricky this week. All of those sold, those electric power banks, and also things like the reciprocating saw there. They was all selling again at cheapest money. So I think people were buying bargains in the auction this week, and that's, you know, that's sometimes good for you buyers. There's certain stuff out there that you can make a few pounds on yourself as well. Bikes were selling okay. Always the same with bikes. If the bike's decent, it'll make decent money. In fact, it can be the same said with most of the things in the auction. As you come down here, we had suitcases and pressure washers and all sorts of other bits and bobs down here. The table tennis stand, that was cheap, and that was about a tenner. Then, of course, we got onto the cars. Well, the cars, the Ford Fiesta there had a 5,000 reserve, but it was a Cat N. Even though it was on a 19 plate, 28,000 miles, it didn't make the reserve, and the vendor has took that one away. We then moved on to this one, which was the Honda Jazz. We've been trying to sell this for a few weeks now. When we did the credit checks on it, it still had finance. We had to wait for the solicitors to clear that. That got cleared, and that made £4,600 in the auction yesterday. So again, quite a good number for that. These here, they made a few quid. These sort of lions. You could pretend you're Gardens, Whalesby Woods, and that big planter there, I think that made £105, something like that. But again, big old ones, they are worth money. They do make a few quid. We sold the trike, and the lawnmowers were cheap yesterday as well. We got onto the front table, a bit of a mix, but a few bids for this old organ there. That made a few, 40, 50 quid, something like that. And then we got onto lots and lots of gaming, PlayStation 2s, all making sort of 20s and 30 quids a box. A couple were a little bit cheaper, but generally speaking, that's where they were. White goods were reasonably cheap yesterday. Not many bids for those. And I don't mind saying, even I bought a smart telly yesterday for about 24, 26 quid that I needed for home. So as we come down here, we got onto the furniture. Now, the furniture wasn't making big money. There's no doubt about that. It wasn't making good money. But a lot of it was selling, which is always nice to see. It's always nice to see that, you know, the things from people's estates and that is at least going on to another home rather than just being disposed of, which is what tends to happen to a lot of stuff. You go past houses where they've got skips and that out, and they're just chucking stuff away. You know, even if it only sells for a few pounds, is better than it being chucked out. As we came down here, little bits and bobs, stuff was making £4, £6, £8, £10. There was a few quid for that one from, remember, that was quite nice. A few dealers after that one, and the whole stand, I think that made 60, 70 quid, something like that. Again, another nice piece. I'm trying to find that table. Where was that table? There was that's the one. The table there, that cost £6,000 to buy, apparently. It sold for £80 in the auction yesterday. Person that's bought that must be rubbing their hands together thinking, I can probably sell this for loads of money. Although I don't think it'll be an easy sell. It's a big table. It's glass as well. These chairs at the end, they sold okay. So did this little nursing chair. And that ended the auction. It was a very interesting day. Quite a few people in the room, quite a few new sign-ups, big numbers on YouTube once again, so thank you for looking in on that one. We're now, it's Sunday, what time is it now? Sunday, 12 o'clock. We're going to get the room ready for you. The staff have been busy all morning, ready to fill it up again next week. We've got loads of tools and things in next week's auction, and loads of interesting bits. As always, a nice little train collection has just come in. See, that's coming and already today. So we are getting ready once again at Prestige Auctions to give you another fantastic auction for next week. Thank you ever so much for watching this short YouTube video and for all the support you give our small family-run business in Grimsby. And we'll hope to see you all very soon at the auction.